So what is Donald Trump whining about this morning? Well, what isn't he whining about, to be honest? But in particular this morning, he is directing his ire at the pollsters because his poll numbers are collapsing, so naturally, he wants to investigate the pollsters for election fraud. You heard that right. Donald Trump wrote in a social media app that the polls from the failing New York Times and ABC Washington Post about a person, Donald J. Trump, me, are fake polls from fake news organizations. That's in all caps, of course. Donald Trump says these people should be investigated for election fraud, and add in the Fox News pollster while you're at it. He says they are negative criminals, I don't know what that means, who apologize to their subscribers and readers after I win elections big. Much bigger than their poll showed I would win. Lose a lot of credibility, he spelled lose wrong, and then go on to cheating and lying for the next cycle, only worse. They suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, and there is nothing that anyone or anything can do about it. They are sick. This follows Donald Trump's many attacks on the media so far, including when Donald Trump sued a pollster, Ann Seltzer, after the election because he didn't like the results from her poll. Trump clearly cannot handle the reality that the American people just aren't very into him. We're going to continue to follow these stories and more, so make sure you're following our account right now, and remember to add the Midas Touch podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
America is about to learn how good we actually used to have it. The ports are empty. Food isn't coming in. Goods are not coming in. Everyone who works in the shipping industry is saying we are about to face a crisis much bigger than the empty shelves during COVID. We have felt entitled in this country to freedom, to democracy, to human rights, to unlimited food and crap to buy. We got lazy, and we did nothing to maintain those freedoms and those rights. We assumed that other people would do it. We stopped valuing our own education. We stopped reading. We stopped being kind to other people. We got completely hell-bent on having more stuff, on having more money, on having more whatever, having more fucking Botox in our faces. It's a false ladder that we were taught to climb. And I don't know if this current iteration of Americans has it in them to survive the Great Depression Part 2, but I don't know if we're going to have a choice.
Breaking news right now, it is Monday, April 28th, 2025, around 1:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just wrapped what was considered the first influencer White House press briefing, and an influencer had asked her about Trump and where he stands on the Second Amendment. That is the one obviously surrounding pew-pews. It is my belief that the press secretary just insinuated that it is okay to use such pew-pews, and it is important to have pew-pews in order to fight off quote-unquote illegal immigrants. Their words, not mine. Watch this clip.
Are law-abiding gun owners, and as you mentioned, is a ardent supporter of the Second Amendment. It's more important now than ever as we see violent crime rates in our inner cities. I've said this repeatedly over the past 4 years. The Second Amendment was never more important than when we had an illegal immigrant crime epidemic spiking in this country. Law-abiding Americans have a constitutional right to defend themselves, and the president absolutely supports that. But to national reciprocity, we do need Congress's help on.
See, the thing about the Trump administration is they send out these dog whistles. That was a dog whistle and an okay, a thumbs up to utilize your Second Amendment right against someone who you believe to be an undocumented individual. They are again doubling, tripling, quadrupling, whatevering down on the fact that anyone who is undocumented must therefore be a violent criminal. Think about the messaging there. And no, she didn't come out and say it outright. She didn't say, use your pew-pews against quote-unquote illegal immigrants. But she did say it was okay. Let me know your thoughts on this. I'm sorry I didn't catch the very beginning of that. It was literally a screen recording as it was happening live. Any updates I have on this, I will share.
So apparently the Burger King south of the border has signed an executive order. He's good at that. That truckers, if you cannot speak English fluently, you're not going to be admitted into the United States. There are Mexican truck drivers. There are Québécois truck drivers. Qu'est-ce qu'ils vont faire? S'ils arrivent aux douanes, puis l'anglais, c'est pas parfait, they're not going to be let in? Like, tabarnak, what's going on here? And maybe they're going to be detained. And maybe they're going to be sent to El Salvador. Who knows? Tabarnak, like, they don't want nobody crossing that border. That's what I see. The Burger King does not want no one crossing the border. Personne de traverser les douanes. Ça, c'est clair et certain.
Breaking news today. Democratic congressman from Michigan, for the first time since Donald Trump's return to the White House, officially filed articles of impeachment. Today's Democrats actually introduced 7 articles of impeachment in the U.S. House of Representatives. And here is what they are accusing Trump of: abuse of power, obstruction of justice, violating the Constitution's emoluments clause. That basically means that the president is not allowed to profit off of the office, inciting violence, undermining free and fair elections, threatening the independence of the judiciary, and using the presidency for personal political gain. In short, the Democrats are saying Trump is tearing at the very fabric of American democracy. Now, let's be clear. The Republicans control Congress right now. These impeachment articles probably will not remove Trump, at least not today. But this moment matters. It's a historic shot across the bow. It's a warning that even under Trump's second presidency, Americans are not backing down. The fight for our democracy is still alive, and Democrats are laying the groundwork to hold Trump accountable, not just today, but for history. And if Trump's chaos keeps piling up, these articles could become the starting point of something much bigger. So watch who defends the Constitution. Watch who turns a blind eye to the power. Follow me now on Instagram and Substack for more. This is not over. This is literally just the beginning.
Well, well, well. It's Monday, baby. Now, I know you've seen the news about the polls. Yes, honey. Things are not working out in Daddy's favor. So much for flooding the zone. See, the thing about flooding the zone is that you need to build an ark first for your people. But you didn't, did you? You built no ark for your people and you flooded the zone, thinking you had complete control, while the rest of us knew you were going to flood the zone, so we built an ark. And we've been floating around in the flooded zone, picking up those that you left behind. Yes, honey. That's why those poll numbers reflect 70-something-odd% of voters are not happy with dumpy pants. Yes, yes. We were prepared for you to flood the zone, but unfortunately for you, the thing that you were not prepared for is facts over fiction, because facts just so happen to be our forte over here, baby. Yes. And if you want to hear some facts, I'll bring some to you. Daddy Dumpy Pants, every single thing that he's tried to do, well, is under review. Yes, honey, he's not getting his way. Things are not playing out like he expected them to play. So what has he done today? He's took to his not-so-true social to go on one rant after another. First, he attacked the polls and the news. You know, anytime you say something Daddy don't like to hear about his disapproval, dear, he immediately calls fake fucking news. But either way, that wasn't good enough just to take to not-so-true social and bitch and whine about the polls. He's losing his base. That's what happens when you put a flood all over the place with misinformation. You forgot to build an ark for your own people. But us over here, we knew the play was to flood the nation with misinformation. So we built an ark of facts. And as we float around the United States, we're going to pick all those up that you left drowning on the ground. Don't you worry about that. Now is the time, by the way, to kick it on up. Yes, turn it up a few notches. It's time to flood the zone with our own factual information on every platform, by the way, because we're making headway today. Anyway, it wasn't just good enough for him to let it on go. He had to continue to rant and rave, and he's back on that shit today about making Canada the 51st state. And he's also gonna appear tomorrow in Michigan. Another rally, friend. Tell me you're scared without telling me you're scared. You are a sitting president and you still feel the need to tour the nation and hold rallies. Is that just to prop up your weak-ass ego? Or is it to bring more hate to the plate to try to win back those that you have lost over the past few days? That's exactly what that is. He's trying to bring the hate back. He's losing his base. How do I know that he's trying to bring the hate back besides the fact that he's throwing himself another rally again? Well, it would be this, my friend. This is how I know that he's trying to reach out to his base, who is slowly slipping away, and he's bringing hate back because, well, he's bringing Columbus Day back from the ashes. The Democrats did everything possible to destroy Christopher Columbus, his reputation, and all the Italians that love him so much. They tore down his statues and put up nothing but woke, or even worse, nothing at all. Now, I know you may not know this, and you would think that they would, since they're so very obsessed with genetics. It just so happens, honey, that the genetic ancestry of Christopher Columbus was not Italian. He lied about that too, just like he lied about finding an unfound nation. Yes, turns out his genetic ancestry would make him Jewish. I know, facts over fiction, but either way, he's trying to rile up some hate today. Unfortunately for Daddy, a lot of people have decided to put that hate to the side because it's getting in the way of their health care, their tax money, their education, their food, and oh, least we not forget, baby, it's gotten in the way of their very own hate play. You see, there's too many factions of hate within MAGA. Some of MAGA hates Muslims, some hates Jews, some hate black, some hate brown, some hate me, some hate you. And while hate brought them together, it will be their very own hate that rips them apart. You can't have that many people in the same goddamn room who hate each other before something goes down, honey. Happy fucking Monday. It's time to flood the zone with our own facts over fiction.
My thoughts on the Unfuck America tour from a cult perspective, because if you're going to go out there, you need to understand you are dealing with a cult. These aren't just regular folks that want to have a conversation. This is a cult. And when you show up with the name Unfuck America, you are showing up as if you are the heroes to fix everything that they have fucked up. And I say they because when you're in a cult, they identify with their leader. So anything you say about him, you're saying about them. Their brain doesn't have a difference in there. That's a cult mind. So they're not separated out from that yet. So as long as you attack them or get your digs or your FAFOs on them, nothing will help. Nothing will help. Because just being a Republican in general for a long time has become a religion. And I think maybe for some Democrats too. But when you're in a religion and if someone else of another religion starts talking to you about their religion as if it's true, you may sit there and be polite or go, oh, that's interesting. But you don't take it to heart because obviously it's not true. It's another religion. So they'll listen to you, but it's not really going to take hold because it's just another religion. And they're usually taught that outside religions are wrong and bad and out to hurt their religion. So if you're religious at all, you can understand if someone came up to you and tried to pitch their religion to you, you'd be like, oh, when Mormon missionaries come to your door, you're polite, but it's also like, okay, thank you, bye. So, and they may come away going, oh yeah, they listened to us. We think we really got there. No, you didn't. You didn't. So I suggest changing the name, and I would change it to something more like Unifying America. Because what we want to do with a cult is, so cults are based on opposition. And right now, Trump has created the Democrats as the opposition. We're the deep state, we're the devil, all that stuff. So we have to create another opposition that we can join forces in, and that to unify us and to go after them, and that would be the mega corporations. And so the focus needs to be there, like, hey, this is what we aren't getting because that's what they're getting. You have to turn to them because you're never going to win all the debates on abortion, LGBTQ, like you're dealing with a religion. So for right now, the best thing to do would be to turn their focus and always, why does the mega corporations need so much money? Why do they get all of this and we get so little? And just keep reframing it that way to where, why do they need so much power? And show examples of how much they get and how much we get. I just think that's so much more effective, and it will start to create so if we do this together, we could take them down together. And I wouldn't use Elon's name. I wouldn't go personal because they identify with Elon, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Trump, because in America, especially Republicans, like that's who you're supposed to be. Especially these white men, like when you grow up, that's who you're supposed to be. So if you attack those people, you're attacking those white guys. So don't do that. Stick with mega corporations, BlackRock, because I've also seen Republican creators on here talk about wanting to buy a house and they couldn't buy one. And they have money and they were like, we just can't buy it. Someone keeps buying up all the houses. And the Republicans in there were talking about BlackRock and the other ones I can't think of right now. And they were frustrated by them. Now they're not linking that to Trump and the other billionaires, but they were angry with them. So if you can make a link of how we have to defeat them to get what we want, I think you're going to have a much better chance. And if you walk in with something called unifying America, then they're not on their back foot in a defense position, because unfuck America is defense right there. Annoyance, agitation. Like you walk in as the enemy thinking you're wearing a cape, and that is very off-putting to a lot of people. So while I think it could be a good idea, the approach has to be different and the name has to be different. You really have to come in with the attitude of, we have to be allies and friends to do this, to take on them, and talk about how neither side of our government works for us. They're all bought and paid for. Talk about the lobbyists, talk about the money in governments, because for a lot of them, this comes down to money. So just help them understand where the money is impacting both sides and how we have to change that so that we actually can make America great again.
Hey, I want to ask you a question about where you get your news today. Who are your favorite, most trusted sources of news in the new media ecosystem? Is it Midas Touch? Is it Aaron Parnas? Is it Democracy Docket, Brian Tyler Cohen, Legal Eagle? I realize I just listed a whole lot of white dudes. Who are the women? Who are the people of color? Who are the non-binary folks that you trust to get your news that are not those big corporate legacy media conglomerates, who we know are openly pandering to Trump? Several of them have sold out to him, buckling and folding in lawsuits they could have easily won. They're really careful not to offend him with what they say. Who are you following on Blue Sky that's a trusted source of news? Legal folks like Anna Bauer and Katie Fang. Maybe you're reading The Bulwark or Mother Jones. What about podcasts? Who are you listening to for podcasts? Who do you watch on TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube? Where are you getting your news from in the new media ecosystem? This is a question that came up during our Indivisible call this past week. Indivisible is a pro-democracy grassroots organization that I'm proud to be a part of. And every week we have this national call where folks ask questions of the two co-founders, Ezra and Leah. And one of the questions from this week was about new media, and specifically, should Indivisible push Democrats in Congress, well, and not just in Congress, Democratic governors as well, to go on right-leaning podcasts, do interviews with social media influencers? Or should they be looking to more centrist and left-leaning folks in the new media? We know legacy media is not really getting the word out. And I don't want to discount the fact that we are seeing electeds, especially folks like Jasmine Crockett and Robert Garcia, who are on legacy media news all of the time doing interviews. They're clear, articulate, outspoken. They are speaking truth about what is happening. And I think there definitely is a place for folks to go on Fox News, but it has to be the right kind of folks. It is the persuasive place for Democratic electeds to be, or anybody in the pro-democracy movement, right? Maybe it's some other kind of community organizer. Is the right place for them to be really on right-wing podcasts? Or not even right-wing, just centrist and right-leaning podcasts? The question was asked because the right-wing media ecosystem is really good at what they do. They've been fantastic at red-pilling young men, right? Why are so many Gen Zers all voting for Trump? Why do so many of them like Trump? Well, they all got red pilled by the Jordan Petersons and the Charlie Kirks and the Andrew Tates. They got sucked down the alt-right pipeline through the podcast, community. They're really good at hooking folks and drawing them in. I mean, obviously they have the benefit of being able to lie and like pander to their outrage and their anger, but we could still be able to reach them through their legitimate anger with the truth. So while it's great that Ezra, one of the co-founders of Indivisible, is doing things like putting op-eds in the Washington Post and the New York Times, that's great. Is that really reaching the correct demographic? And who is the correct demographic? Well, we know that a big chunk of folks on the left and the right they're on new media, right? They're not going to read that quote in the New York Times. I think that's very true for me. I would not be reading any legacy media if I was not doing this for my job now. Kind of political stuff I was consuming before the election was I would watch Joy Reid and Chris Hayes on MSNBC, and I would listen to the Sisters-in-Law podcast. And I never was big on Twitter ever, but once Musk bought it, I deleted my account. And I didn't really understand why so many journalists and so many pundits loved Twitter. Well, I'm on Blue Sky now, and I love it. I get a lot of my information from Blue Sky. I follow a lot of attorneys, a lot of pro-democracy groups, a lot of folks in new media. And that is sort of how my news gets filtered to me for the most part. I go seek out legacy media only because of this job. Otherwise, probably most of what I would be consuming for news now would be off of Blue Sky. One of the good things about pivoting my work from being out in the garden to this right now, because it's a necessity, is that I discovered Blue Sky. But I want to get to what Leah said. She said the reality is that over multiple decades, folks have tried to build a left-wing 24/7 market for the news, and it's never materialized. It doesn't work. There is not the appetite for it that there is for the nonstop grievance politics of the right. It just doesn't work on a liberal or progressive side. It's not fueled by hate and rage and, racism and misogyny and bigotry and disinformation. So there isn't that appetite. There isn't a market for nonstop progressive media 24/7 like there is for right-wing grievance politics. Leah went on to say, actually, you and I, we're all really invested in political news, but the vast majority of people, they don't really want to consume political media. Doesn't mean that they're not consuming politics from other sources. And I thought this was such a good point. Leah said, I don't really want us to try and build a bunch of left-wing podcasts. It's fantastic that the Midas Touch has broken in and become the #1 podcast. They beat out Joe Rogan over and over again. That's much needed. That's important. But there isn't really space for like 8 or 12 of those folks. Leah said what she wants to see is the momfluencer, who mostly talks about, mom influencer stuff, remodeling her laundry room or something about kids' crafts. But in the context of her work, she just drops a mention about how upset she is that RFK Jr. is trying to get rid of flu vaccines. It's that kind of organic, filtered news that is contextualized within people's real lives. It's that kind of subtle messaging that appeals to people because that's sort of the way your average person who's relatively disinterested in politics hears about politics and how it fits in their lives. So Leah was saying, how do we infuse our messages into cultural spaces that don't typically have all that much to do with politics? How do we get our messaging out to people who don't consider themselves political, but they do want a country that actually works? Where is that space in the new media ecosystem? And do you think Leah's right? Or are there other folks that you are listening to and you think could have a broader reach, that you think are the correct conduits through which we need to be messaging? Of course, I, as a permaculture person, I'm going to be looking at the principle use and value diversity. Right? In permaculture, we always have that emphasis on how important it is to fold in different elements in order to create a more resilient system. Not just more resilient, but more productive and effective and stable. So I would argue it's not just the mom influencers. It's not just the quote in the New York Times. It is all of this new media as well. So what does it look like to build that diversified group? Who would you list out? We're building out a catalog of folks with various platforms that could be useful in the fight for democracy. Who would be in that catalog for you?
There are a lot of bad things going on, and they're happening to good people. And that is the way of things sometimes. The student loan thing that's going to happen, people that are in default on their student loans are going to get garnished on their paychecks. There is people that are homeowners, that their escrow accounts are doubling, and because of the insurance and the taxes, so their $2,500 a month payment is going up to $3,500, $3,700 a month. The renters that are at the hands of cutthroat landlords are having their situation raised, in addition to their car insurance going up and their maintenance and God forbid car payments going up. There are more than a few people who were talked into the PPP loan during the pandemic, and now the worm is turned on that, and they're going to have to face up to what they do for the $50,000 they took out and used it on living expenses when nobody had jobs. And in general, the economy is going through a correction, and people are losing money in their stock market, and overall housing values are going down. And I think all of this is going to get repaired if you can stay level-headed, look for ways that you can improve your daily situation, do the best that you can. But the most important thing that I want to tell you, and I don't tell people what to do, I tell them what I've been through and what I learned from that, and from that people can figure out what it is that they want to do. But none of this means anything except for your relationships that you have with your people, your children, your wife, your husband, your grandchildren, your friends that are closer than friends, their family, your grandparents, people in your circle, people that you're helping, people that are helping you. Those are the only things that matter, and those are the only things that last. When you go through that halocline, at the end, you get to take all the stuff inside that you learned and you garnered and you created those lovely memories. You get to keep all that. You get to take that with you, and we're all going to meet on the other side. And the rich ones, the very rich ones, are going to have all of that holy wealth that is created in here. And whether you had a $130 million mansion, or you lived in a camper and you had to do some other things, no one cares. In the spirit realm, no one cares. Just know that none of it means anything. And I have been so poor that I couldn't even see straight. And I had wonderful, wonderful times. When I was in college, I was a resident hall advisor, and I got room and board, and I got paid $75 a month for my spending money. And of course, that was 1981, something like that, when I was in college. We used to play spades, and we used to play hearts down in the lobby, and I had the most wonderful time of my life. And I was almost, when I was a hall director of the football dorms at Richards Hall, Utah State, that was also super fun, only I made $750 a month for doing that job, going to school. And I couldn't imagine a better life. I was more rich then than I've ever been. And no phone bill, no internet, no heating bill, no insurance, no house payment, no rent. I mean, I got room and board at that job too. And since then I've been, at all levels, and I've experienced some success. But I was going through a bunch of stuff. My wife and I are decluttering because I've been flat on my back for 2.5 years, maybe more. not really been able to do much. I'm just, I've been hiring people to move some things around because I couldn't lift more than 10 pounds for 2 years. And so we're getting through a bunch of junk, and I'm going through a bunch of stuff in my office that's been stashed away. And I had a bucket of saving stuff, and I had a bunch of buckets of stuff that I had to go through. And there's 5 trash buckets and 1 small bucket of things that I'm keeping. And almost everything that went in the keep bucket had something to do of a memory that I had with my friends and my family. And those are the things that I keep. And it reminds me of all the times in my life that I've really been happy. And I know people are struggling. I'm going to do a couple of videos on mindset and action items of things that you can concentrate on rather than concentrating on just crushing no way out type things. And I guarantee you it's going to be okay. I promise you it's going to be okay. And I'm going to work on some different ways that we can make sure it's okay working together. And this too shall pass. And the doom and gloom will happen, and then the sun will rise, and the rain will come, and the sun will dry it out. I guarantee you, if you can learn how to be poor and get every ounce of enjoyment out of the struggle, work 3 jobs, put it strategically, set yourself up. Like I said, I'm going to do some videos that'll help with that. But I was in full-on renal failure this year, and I had been dealing with it for 2 years before that, but my kidneys just left. I mean, they were 18 and then 5 and then dialysis. And man, I'm telling you, the resurrection that I feel is a true feeling that I have. And I wasn't sure I was going to live, and I was okay with that. If they needed me up in heaven more than they need me down here, all my family and my girls and my grandchildren and my wife and everybody, they're all going to come and meet me after I ride on ahead before everyone else. So I'm okay with that. That's going to happen, and then I'm going to greet them when they come. And if God wants me to be here and be doing more things on this earth that I can, make him proud that he saved me, well, that's what I'm going to do. And if that means I'm working in a soup kitchen, or if I'm, giving a talk, or I'm educating some people, I mean, the thing about my life is I get to do what I want. And if I can show others, especially ones that are being challenged, how they can do that for themselves, then that's what I'm going to do. So please, don't take any of this stuff personally. Think about the moves that we're going to make today in the overall plan, and I'll help you guys make a plan. I mean, if somebody in these comments wants to say, hey, Mark, do a live or a podcast or whatever with me, let's talk about my specific problems, let's talk about my specific situation, I will do that. But if no one told you that they love you today, I love you, and there isn't anything you can do about that.